raid inside Syria, capturing a top ISIS leader.
And in Ukraine, word that 2 Americans may have been captured by Russian forces. What we're learning about the 2 men.
President Biden taking on big oil, claiming corporate greed is partially to blame for the record high gas prices. How the oil companies are now responding.
New evidence in the January 6th investigation. The emails from Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's wife now revealed. Plus, the video of a man taking a tour of the Capitol before the riot and what he was taking a picture of.
Formula frustration, why the factory at the center of the baby formula shortage has been forced to shut down again.
Caught on camera, the roadside standoff in Los Angeles.
She's trying to shield him. She's trying to shield him with her body.
How it ended.
And later, selling your house, the color you should paint your front door to increase your home's value.
From ABC News in New York, this is America This Morning.
Good Thursday morning, everyone. We begin with the breaking news overnight, a U.S. military operation inside Syria.
U.S. forces say they've captured a top ISIS leader. The military has identified him as Hani Ahmed al-Kurd, a bomb maker for the terror group. They say he was picked up overnight during a rare ground raid in the northwestern part of Syria, which is partially controlled by extremists.
We spoke earlier to ABC's senior Pentagon reporter, Louis Martinez, about the raid.
These kinds of missions are undertaken by elite special operations forces. They're really risky because they're dangerous areas. They're not under the control of U.S. forces. So therefore, when you go into far western Syria, you're going to either be undertaking fire from extremist forces. And so whenever the U.S. military takes these kinds of missions, it's at great risk. And it also highlights the significance of why they're going after this individual.
Pentagon officials say even though ISIS has been degraded, it remains a threat.
The other big story this morning, 2 Americans are missing and feared captured by Russian forces in Ukraine. We're learning more about the 2 men who left for Europe 2 months ago, saying they were on a mission to help Ukrainians. Here's ABC's Derek Dennis.
This morning, we're now hearing from the families of 2 U.S. veterans feared captured by Russian forces in Ukraine.
I just want Angie back. He's just got such a big heart. We just want it back.
The men, Alexander Druki and Andy Wynn, both from Alabama, were reportedly serving as volunteers with the Ukrainian military. Druki's family saying his platoon came under heavy fire last week, forcing everyone to fall back except for Druki and Wynn. The State Department saying it's aware of the unconfirmed reports.
If it's true, we'll do everything we can to get them safely back home.
Their families say the men traveled to Ukraine in April, not knowing each other, but quickly became friends, deeply believing in their mission to help Ukraine.
He couldn't sit idly by. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep, knowing that the people over there were suffering in such a way. He really felt he had to go try to help in some way.
He really felt like he had a purpose and was very proud of what he was doing. He felt very honored to be accepted by the Ukrainian people, and he felt a responsibility to help them.
Back in April, Wynn spoke on the phone to the ABC station in Huntsville, Alabama, acknowledging the danger.
I made peace with the decision. I know there's a potential of me dying. I'm willing to give my life for what I believe is right.
Other Westerners have been taken prisoner during the war, including 2 British men sentenced to death by Russian-backed separatists.
We discourage Americans from going to Ukraine and fighting in Ukraine. It is a war zone.
In the meantime, President Biden yesterday announcing another $1 billion in military aid for Ukraine, the biggest single military aid commitment to date. Ukrainian President Zelensky says that aid is desperately needed, with the Russians now controlling at least 75% of a key city in eastern Ukraine. Derek Dennis, ABC News, New York.
Now to the economy and growing concern on Wall Street about a looming recession, while on Main Street the focus remains on inflation and gas prices, with President Biden suggesting he may take new action. This morning, with inflation the #1 issue of concern for most Americans and no relief in sight when it comes to gas prices, new reaction to the letter President Biden sent yesterday to big oil executives, blaming their corporate greed along with the war in Ukraine for the record high prices at the pump. The president warned the executives he could invoke emergency powers to increase output at refineries, writing, quote, profit margins well above normal being passed directly onto American families are not acceptable. But the White House is not sharing how the president might use his executive powers.
We are calling on them to do the right thing, to be patriots here, and not to use the war as an excuse.
Oil refinery capacity is down by 3 million barrels a day since 2020. But the American Petroleum Institute blames Biden's green energy push, claiming the administration's, quote, misguided policy agenda shifting away from domestic oil and natural gas has compounded inflationary pressures. Some older refineries have also closed due to new environmental standards. And as for those record profits, oil companies are saying they're making up for big losses during the pandemic.
Any revenues that are being made right now are being made up to balance out losses from back in 20 and 21, and also to now begin reinvesting.
In the meantime, stock futures were up overnight after the Federal Reserve's latest move to bring down inflation, raising interest rates by 3/4 of a point, making everything from car loans to credit card debt more expensive. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says it's still possible to avoid a recession, but a growing number of economists disagree.
I think that events of the last few months have raised the degree of difficulty, created great challenges.
And there's new evidence of the toll inflation is taking on the economy. Retail spending unexpectedly dropped last month.
Let's turn now to weather. And historic flooding around Yellowstone National Park is triggering a water crisis in Montana's largest city. People in Billings are being asked to conserve water after the city's treatment plant was shut down. It can't operate effectively when the Yellowstone River is at flood level. Meanwhile, there's concern about more flooding because of warm temperatures on the way, which could rapidly melt the snowpacks in the mountains.
A new development overnight in the January 6th investigation. New emails have surfaced from the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. We're also seeing where Vice President Mike Pence was hiding during the Capitol attack. He'll be the focus of today's committee hearing. ABC's Ike Ajachi is here now with the very latest. Ike, good morning.
Good morning, Mona. ABC News obtaining new photos showing the exact moment former Vice President Mike Pence was taken away from the Senate floor with his family by his side. New images of former Vice President Mike Pence sheltering in place at the Capitol with his wife and daughter by his side. The photos taken just minutes after he was evacuated from the Senate floor on January 6th when a pro-Trump mob stormed the Capitol.
To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins.
This morning, the third public hearing before the American people. The Select Committee will examine former President Trump's effort to pressure Pence to block the certification of the election.
As a federal judge has indicated, this likely violated 2 federal criminal statutes. President Trump had no factual basis for what he was doing, and he had been told it was illegal.
The Select Committee will hear from 2 live witnesses close to Pence who intend to highlight Trump lawyer John Eastman's plan, which required Pence to reject legitimate electors from the 2020 presidential election. Sources tell ABC News the committee is in possession of emails between Eastman and Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. The details of the emails are unclear, but Thomas and Eastman have both been accused of trying to overturn the 2020 election. Also, new questions surrounding Republican Congressman Barry Loudermilk's actions on January 5th. The Select Committee releasing this video showing Loudermilk giving constituents a tour of the Capitol complex. The video goes on to claim that one of the participants of the tour marched to the Capitol the next day and made detailed threats against members of Congress. Loudermilk denying any wrongdoing.
But no one in that group showed that type of aggression that day.
Now, former Vice President Pence will be in Ohio today giving a speech. Many of his top advisors, though, will be participating in this hearing. Mona?
Ike, thank you. ABC News' live coverage of today's committee hearing begins at 1 p.m. Eastern.
New details about the man accused of killing 2 police officers near Los Angeles. The suspect in Tuesday's shooting in El Monte was on probation for gun possession. The DA says the probation stemmed from an arrest in 2020. The 2 officers were shot while responding to a call at a motel.
The manufacturing plant at the center of the nationwide baby formula shortage has been forced to shut down once again, this time because of bad weather. The Abbott plant in Michigan was the focus of contamination concerns and just reopened this month. But officials say severe storms and flooding forced it to close again. It will reopen after it's cleaned.
Time now for a look at your Thursday weather. At least 2 confirmed tornadoes caused widespread damage in central Wisconsin. 90,000 power outages were reported. Strong winds also blew over several big rigs. The same system will bring severe storms to parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and upstate New York today. And there's dangerous heat today from the Midwest down to Texas and Florida. It will feel like triple digits from the plains down to the mid-Atlantic. Checking temperatures elsewhere, mid-70s in the Northeast and mild in the Pacific Northwest.
Coming up, a legal battle over the chicken sold at Costco.
But first, the flea and tick collar now blamed for thousands of pet deaths. Should it be recalled?
And later, the dramatic standoff in Los Angeles, all caught on camera. Back now with the dog creating a heated situation inside this Missouri home. It took a peek at something on the stove, but the pooch turned on a burner with its paw, causing a fire inside a greasy pan. Both dogs in the home are okay.
A very different concern for pet owners this morning. There's a new push to recall a flea and tick collar now linked to thousands of deaths. Here's ABC's Andrea Fuji.
This morning, emotional testimony from pet owners who claim a popular flea and tick collar led to the deaths of their dogs.
I'm convinced it was the Seresto collar that killed Tigger.
Faye Hemsley described how she says her dog Tigger died after wearing a Seresto collar. She urged Congress during a hearing yesterday to take action.
Tigger was also lovely and never suffered from any serious health problems until I put the Seresto collar around his neck.
Seresto collars, known by their catchy commercial.
Seresto's innovative collar distributes active ingredients for easy, effective protection.
Have been linked to thousands of deaths, and the EPA reports nearly 100,000 complaints about the collar since 2015. Some lawmakers now asking why the EPA has not acted.
Why a product linked to more than 2,500 pet deaths remains on the market.
The chairman of a House subcommittee is now calling on the EPA to conduct a review, and he's asking Seresto's maker, Elanco, to issue a voluntary recall. But the company argues the collars are safe, saying their experts found no evidence of any harm.
Adverse event reports are not intended to be, and in fact are absolutely not, proof of causation.
Pet owners, however, insist their dogs have suffered from vomiting, tremors, and even seizures.
Ultimately, the family decided the most humane thing would be to put Rooney to sleep at the age of 9.
Some humans also experienced side effects. A congressional report on Seresto noted that regulators in Canada have already banned the collars. Andrew, Mona.
Andrea, thank you. Costco is facing a lawsuit over its popular rotisserie chicken. 2 shareholders are suing the company, claiming it mistreats the birds at its processing plant by allowing them to grow unnaturally large. The suit claims the chickens suffer inescapable misery. Costco has insisted that it treats animals humanely.
Coming up, a juror from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial speaks out for the first time.
Also ahead, the new scandal in pro wrestling.
A confrontation with that spectator there.
She's trying to shield him. She's trying to shield him with her body.
That's right.
A dramatic ending to a police pursuit. Officers chased a DUI suspect through Los Angeles, and when the driver stopped and got out of the SUV, a woman appeared to shield him from officers who had their weapons drawn. He eventually did surrender, and the woman was placed in handcuffs.
A juror from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial is speaking out for the first time, saying Heard's testimony was not realistic. During an exclusive interview with ABC News, the juror described Depp's account as more believable. He said the jurors who awarded Depp $10 million felt Heard was crying crocodile tears, and they did not buy her claim that Depp hit her. The juror saying, quote, a lot of Amber's story didn't add up, and the majority of the jury felt she was more the aggressor.
We turn now to the new scandal in pro wrestling, but it's not the athletes in the ring this time.
I'm Vince McMahon, damn it, let's hear it!
This morning, Vince McMahon, the CEO who transformed pro wrestling into a global powerhouse, now faces a hush money scandal.
Somebody call my mama. I am the boss.
The World Wrestling Entertainment's board of directors is reportedly investigating a $3 million payment from McMahon to a former employee to keep their alleged affair quiet. According to the Wall Street Journal, the separation agreement prevents the 41-year-old former staffer from discussing her relationship with McMahon. A WWE spokesperson says the relationship was consensual. The board's investigation also reportedly uncovered non-disclosure agreements from other former employees, some of whom allege misconduct against McMahon and another executive. McMahon is married to Linda McMahon, who ran for the U.S. Senate and served in the Trump administration.
I approve this message because it's time for something different.
It's not the first controversy since taking over the company from his father. He was indicted on drug charges in 1993, accused of obtaining steroids for wrestlers.
I watch the pay-per-view Sunday, brother.
Some wrestlers, including Hulk Hogan, testified they would regularly pick up steroids at the company's headquarters in Connecticut. McMahon faced 11 years in prison but was acquitted after the jury found he did not direct wrestlers to take the steroids. The company was already in the spotlight just last month. Another top executive, McMahon's daughter, took a leave of absence. And a dramatic overtime win in the Stanley Cup Final Game 1. The Avalanche winning 4-3 to take Game 1 against the Lightning. They play again Saturday in Denver.
Coming up, the presidential memo from the Jimmy Carter White House just uncovered what it predicted.
But first, selling your house? The color you should paint your front door.
Time to check the pulse, and we begin with a way to cash in on your house.
Experts say the color of your front door can make a big difference. The best color? Black. Data shows it can bring in an extra 3% on a sale.
And for your bathroom, go with pale blue. Zillow says that can add thousands to the average sale. Next, some presidential history that just came to light. Unfortunately, it was ignored.
A memo sent to Jimmy Carter in 1977 made a bold prediction. Carter's science advisor warned about the danger of fossil fuel combustion and the risk of climate change. The memo was obtained by the Guardian newspaper, and most of the predictions have come true. The only problem, the energy secretary at the time said the memo did not warrant presidential involvement. And next, China may have detected signs of alien life, but apparently won't share the details.
A Chinese government publication first reported the findings, saying a powerful radio telescope picked up signals that looked like evidence of extraterrestrial technology. They said an investigation was underway.
But then the report was mysteriously quickly deleted. Experts say it was likely just unexplained radio frequencies, but we may never know. And finally, a preview of next year's Barbie movie.
Ryan Gosling is playing Ken, and here he is, sporting bleach blonde hair, spray tan, abs, and personalized undies. Gosling's Ken follows a preview of Margot Robbie as Barbie.
One person commented online, "Where do I buy this Ken doll?" Good question. Top headlines next.
Checking the top stories, U.S. forces have captured a top ISIS leader in Syria. He was taken overnight during a rare ground raid in the northwestern part of the country, which is mostly controlled by extremists.
A possible snag for the Senate's gun safety bill. Republican Senator John Cornyn says he's starting to get concerned about outstanding issues, but Democrats say they're optimistic the issues can be resolved.
Actor Kevin Spacey is appearing in a London courtroom this morning as he faces charges of sexually assaulting 3 men. The alleged incidents took place between 2005 and 2013.
Tesla is leading the way in crashes involving self-driving vehicles, prompting calls from Congress for an investigation. A new report reveals more than 270 incidents in the last year. That's about 70% of all such crashes.
Today's weather, the same system that brought tornadoes to Wisconsin, can trigger storms from Ohio to upstate New York. Rain for the southeast, hot and dry in the west.
And finally, the man walking around the world.
He spoke to our very own Will Gans.
From Jordan to Switzerland and all of the thousands of miles between, Tom Borman has seen it all on foot. The Netherlands native on day 404 of a years-long mission to walk around the world.
I'm trying to be the first human being to cross all continents on foot, which is never done before.
The idea coming to Tom when he was at rock bottom, an addict and struggling with mental health issues.
For me, it was literally do or die because I was suicidal. And then I sold everything, my house, my belongings, and I left with $300. And I started traveling and I found myself.
Now, Tom walks a marathon a day at least, except for that one time when he had to run.
I had to run in Montenegro. They tried to rob me. And luckily, I did track and field when I was young. I started to run. I was chased by 7 youngsters.
Every night, Tom knocking on a stranger's door, asking for a place to stay.
What has been the weirdest place where you've had to sleep?
Well, I think 3 weeks ago, I slept in a limo at someone's driveway. I slept in between the goats in Jordan in the desert. And then the next day, they served me a dinner. They served me a goat head, including the tongue and the eyes.
But Tom says it's all worth it.
I stay with people from all over the world in every country, and there are still good people out there.
Tom says he's also using his walk around the world to help raise money for 4 schools in Nepal. For more info, check him out on Instagram at iwalkaroundtheworld. Andrew, Mona.
Can he take my Fitbit with him? I need to get those steps in.
Yes, mine as well. And that's what's making news in America this morning.
Thanks for streaming with us on ABC News Live.